Welcome back to the show. We're talking about the APEC forum that took place in Lima, Peru over the weekend, and we're discussing the growing relationship between China and Latin America as Chinese President Xi Jinping visits 3 countries in the region. Joining me now from Santiago is Fernando Reyes Matta. He is a former ambassador. He is the director of the Center for Latin American Studies at Shanghai University. And with us here in the studio is Eric Farnsworth. He is the Vice President of the Americas Society and Council of the Americas. Welcome to all of you to the show. Ambassador Reyes Matta, let me start with you. President Xi Jinping is visiting Chile as part of his 3-nation Latin American tour. This is his 3rd visit to the region since he took office 3 years ago. He told the APEC meeting, which just finished in Lima, Peru, and these are his words. He said, "We are standing at the start of a new phase. Let us contribute our mutual efforts to the establishment of a China-Latin America community of shared destiny." How significant is this visit by the Chinese leader for your country, Chile?
Well, I think it's important to underline something. The visit of the President Xi Jinping have these great values that is never before a Chinese leader has known Latin American as the President Xi Jinping. He visited many times. He visited before our reality. So he understands what is the possibility for the new bridge, the new common dialogue between China and Latin America. What, in my opinion, is the most important challenger is for us. For the Latin American and the Caribbean country, we need to understand what happened now in China. What means the new normal? What means the new economic development? What means the innovation as an essential part of the new reality in China? We need to put the connection between China and Latin America, China and Chile particularly, in this new level. We need to create other field for the common links. That's my reaction.
Mr. Jiang, I mentioned that APEC meeting. It just finished in Lima, Peru. What are the most important messages that President Xi delivered to that meeting?
Well, I was deeply impressed by 2 points in Xi Jinping's speech at the APEC. As a matter of fact, he made 2 important speeches over there. But I believe that there will be 2 points. Okay, first, Xi Jinping said that the APEC must join, all kinds of these countries must join their hands in fighting against trade protectionism. And I noticed that he mentioned a very popular Chinese saying. This saying has something to do with the so-called Chinese traditional medicine. He said, if you feel painful somewhere in your body, that means the blood cannot flow freely at that point. So if there is no pain, there will be no blockade. If there is blockade, there will be pain. That means the world community should join hands in fighting against the trade protectionism. It is a tragic fact that everybody in the world can see that trade protectionism is on the rise over the past several years. So we must fight against this kind of tendency. Secondly, I'm deeply impressed by the confidence of President Xi Jinping in his speech in the Chinese economy. Well, nowadays everybody is concerned about the so-called hard landing of the Chinese economy, and don't worry about that. Well, you must remember that in the past 30 years, Chinese economy has been growing very fast. So 1 percentage point of growth nowadays is equal to several percentage points in the old days, because China is now the 2nd biggest economy. So the world community should have confidence in China's economy. We are going to see that our growth rate in the coming years will be between 6 to 7 percentage points. That's really high growth rate still.
I want to say something. I think in Lima start the new moment of Asia-Pacific relationship. I think exactly in this moment, after Mr. Trump said something about the TPP that I think now is the moment to create a new spirit inside Asia-Pacific country.
Right.
So from this perspective, APEC have the opportunity to create another agenda for our countries.
Right. Eric, certainly the Chinese leader emphasized free trade in that address to APEC, but let's look at what's happening right now. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, something pushed very hard by the Obama administration here in Washington, is now dead. I think Donald Trump put the final nail in the coffin on Monday. Does this mean China now has an opportunity to take the lead in driving trade, economic relations in that region?
Anand, I think we're at an inflection point in the Asia-Pacific. I mean, traditionally, the United States has played a very important role in terms of driving a certain agenda toward liberalization, not just on the trade and investment side, but in terms of other values-based issues as well. It's very clear that based on the vote here in the United States on November 8th, that the American public is looking for a new direction and voted for Mr. Trump, who clearly, as you indicated, has suggested that the United States will pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So I think we have to assume that he's going to do that, and TPP is indeed dead. What that means is there's a huge opportunity for the leader of China, and I saw that personally in Lima at the APEC meetings. I was there, and I saw the president's speech, and he very clearly laid out an agenda with China at the middle, saying to the Latin American and other leaders who were there, come join us, we're moving forward. He didn't say anything about the United States or about TPP, but it was implicit. If there are other places and other countries who don't want to join us, that's fine, but we're moving forward and we encourage you to join us. So there's a huge opportunity here for China, and I think the Chinese leader has seized that. The question is, does this opportunity get realized? Does it get implemented? It's a very strong vision, but that's what it is at this point, and it needs to be fleshed out. It needs to be implemented, and there are some realities here. There's geographic distance, there's history, there's culture, there's language barriers, and we also have a certain difference in value structures between and among governments. So this is not a certain path ahead. It's not necessarily a straight line, but it's a massive opportunity, and again, from what I saw, we could very well be at a global inflection point where you're having a shift in the strategic paradigm right now in the Asia-Pacific.
Right. There is an alternative plan. That is the free trade area. I'll get to you in a moment, Ambassador. That is the free trade area of the Asia-Pacific, the FTAAP, which is, of course, championed by China. The Pacific Economic Cooperation Council says the FTAAP will add an estimated $2.4 trillion of output to the global economy by 2025. Is that the blueprint that China is looking for, the basis for which it expands its influence in the region?
Well, it certainly seems to be. President Xi mentioned that specifically and said that's where we need to go collectively. The FTAAP is part of the APEC agenda. It has been for about 10 years, but it's been not much action has been taken on it as China has pursued its own regional strategy, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and the United States and some of the other countries have pursued the TPP. But now without TPP, it looks like if we want to really link together in the Asia-Pacific, FTAAP, the free trade area of the Asia-Pacific, does seem to be one way forward. But there's also a very important additional point that the One Belt, One Road initiative that has been at the center of China's economic international development for some time now and has really been focused on Asia. The president said in Lima that he welcomed Latin American participation in One Belt, One Road. In my view, this is a tremendous expansion, tremendous in terms of large expansion of ambition, because now it's not just contiguous landmass nations that are being invited to participate. Now this becomes a global initiative. So we really are seeing some fundamental changes here in linkages and economic relationships, and it will be fascinating to see how those develop.
Reyes Matta, go ahead.
No, I say that in this framework that you mentioned, I think it's important to understand something. Latin American will live triangle. The triangle is United States, China, Latin America. This is the reality. What means the 21st century? That at the same time, we will have some links with United States, obviously. But for other side, we have a strong link with China and other Asia-Pacific countries. This interaction what means that today, this country, Latin American country, my country, have the opportunity that we can call the multi-links, multi-pertenency in the diplomatic field, in the diplomatic arena, international arena. That is the possibility to create some particular connection, some particular common interest, win-to-win, between Asia-Pacific, China particularly, and another, with this area, with this continent. That is important. But particularly in the connection between China, Chile, and another country, you promote the idea of harmonic society. We promote the idea of cohesion, social cohesion. There are a common links, a common reality in the connection between state market society. That is the real agenda that we need to work, the connection between state market society.
Right.
Inside that, we create many area connection.
Okay, Mr. Jiang, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to say that in the near future, we are going to see two very clear kind of tendencies, okay? On the one hand, TPP is going to die. And on the other hand, we are going to see China's One Belt, One strategy. This strategy supposes that, it just says that a kind of connectivity will become the norm of the day. So this kind of connectivity will kill the blockade just for the pain. That means the blood cannot flow freely. So we are going to see that more countries on the other side of the Pacific Ocean will join hands with China and other countries in the world to push forward this kind of One Belt, One Road strategy.
Now, Mr. Jiang, there are opportunities for cooperation in a wide range of areas, from energy, infrastructure, technological innovation, information technology. What do you see? Where does it go from here in this relationship between China and Latin America? How does it develop?
Well, if we say that in the past decade, China is the so-called China-Latin America trade relationship is mainly dependent upon the purchase of commodities. Okay, then in the near future, I would assume that China will make more investment in the infrastructure. You know, the first time I went to Chile was in 2000. At that time, the highway, well, actually there was no highway at all back in 2000. So it's a long journey from the airport to my hotel. And I just came back from Chile 10 days ago. Well, I just couldn't see that many changes that has taken place on the transportation. It still took me more than 1 hour from airport to my hotel. So China can make some kind of investment in building roads, bridges, all kinds of things. So I think in the near future, China will make more contributions to the transportation system in the region. And secondly, I would assume that in the near future, financial cooperation will develop in a fast and smooth way. Because if you want to have more trade, more cooperation, investment, then financial sector cooperation need to go hand in hand with these kind of developments.
Eric, so we hear about opportunities, but we're also hearing a lot of rhetoric from the president-elect about protectionism, isolationist policies. How would that affect Latin America and the overall dynamics in a region where both the United States and China have major interests?
Yeah, first of all, let me make a quick point about what the ambassador was saying. I think he's quite right. I think that China's raising the profile in Latin America establishes almost a strategic triangle for Latin America in terms of the United States and China. I think that's a really important point. And I think that Latin America itself shows that it has ambitions and it has its own options that perhaps extend beyond the traditional linkages. So I think that's a certain maturing of the region in a positive way. So I think we can look at it that way. But in terms of the question of potential protectionism in the United States, it affects the relationship fundamentally. I don't think we can overstate that. I mean, the president has said, as we've talked about, that the United States is going to pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which hasn't even been passed and implemented yet. So, you know, that it's more of an opportunity cost there. But, you know, he's also said that he's going to pull the United States out of the North America Free Trade Agreement. NAFTA is the fundamental trade agreement for the United States with Latin America, and indeed in terms of global competitiveness for the United States. If the president unilaterally pulls out of NAFTA, it's going to change the supply chains, it's going to change the economic linkages, not just with Mexico, but with all the countries that have developed their own trade relationships based on that foundation. It's going to affect issues fundamentally. But I think the other issue, not just in terms of the trade investment, it also affects, in a very negative way, in my view, the perception. It's been, since the end of World War II, the perception, and I think an accurate one, that the United States is the power globally that is willing to put its own interests sometimes behind the interests of global stability and global economic gain because of the belief that such was good for the United States and ultimately benefited us as much or more than anybody else. Now we are beginning to see that the United States may be pulling away from that traditional role. So you have a question then of economic management globally, and countries are going to have to take that into account as they develop their own path forward. And again, we are already seeing that. This isn't something that's going to happen in the future. It's not something that's theoretical. It's something that is happening now as people take account of where the United States may be going and are already laying the groundwork for their own path ahead. So I don't think we can overstate that.